The future of medical education, assessing the transition from university to hospital training for comprehensive development.
Thank you very much. By way of introduction, my name is Anas Nader. I am an emergency doctor by background and CEO and co-founder of Patchwork Health. Patchwork Health is a digital platform that enables clinicians to work flexibly and allows healthcare employers to better plan and deploy their workforce effectively. And I'm very pleased to say I'm joined by an excellent panel to talk about a topic that's dear to me myself. So without further ado, I'd like to, if each panelist can please go around, introduce yourself, what you do, and the kind of work you do today. Go ahead.
Yeah, so my name is Konstantin Kotschenreiter. I'm a recent medical graduate from the University of Cologne, doing some research in molecular immunology, recently transitioned more into a software development role, which is probably why I landed on this panel. Spent a lot of time working with machine learning and trying to figure out how we can create scalable solutions that will help us prepare for the medical world of tomorrow. Having recently graduated from medical school, I missed sort of the technological aspect being covered in my education, and that's something that's near and dear to my heart because I believe that the shift is coming, technological shift, and I think it's important that we as clinicians are able to understand what's happening so we can better help shape the technological future that we're going to be working in tomorrow.
Hugh?
Hello, my name's Hugh. I'm an emergency medicine consultant by trade from South Wales, and for 50% of the time I also work at Cardiff Medical School, where I program direct a emergency medicine and pre-hospital BSc degree for undergraduates, and we just started to get into the world of postgraduate CPD courses for anaesthetics and intensive care emergency medicine. My involvement here is mainly around virtual reality in the use of medical education, and we were lucky enough to get an EU grant about 2 years ago to create a platform for Wales. So all of our health boards in Wales, all of our universities own this platform. It's effectively a PowerPoint for VR, so we've been able to upload a lot of content for education for all disciplines within Wales. And from that, then became the chair of the Immersive Technology Special Interest Group, which is run by the Life Science Hub Wales.
Thank you, Hugh. Before we move on, can I ask you all to speak louder and closer to the mic, because I think the lunch out there and everything else is pretty loud, so we need to drown their voices talking about medical education. Let's go.
Thank you. It is a bit difficult to hear even the panelists on the stage. Hi, I'm Chia Adachi. I'm a professor and dean for digital education within the Faculty of Medicine and Dentistry at Queen Mary University of London. And my role here is to really transform digital education for health education. And within the faculty, we have 40 to 50 online and blended learning programs, mostly in postgraduate level, and I look after the development and design of those courses. But also, I work closely with our undergraduate MBBS course in thinking about transforming the curriculum for the future of medicine. And so it's to do with digital, really transforming the kind of practice that our students would have to go into the future. The other side of the work that I do is to deal with academic development, so preparing our educators to teach online differently and to bring on change in their teaching practice, which is not always an easy feat when you think about clinicians and different types of educators coming into our medical programs. And so that's one side of the work that I do.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Jan. I'm a pharmacist by profession. I'm also the general manager of a Maltese distribution and marketing company. And in the past couple of years, we've changed the way we look at medical education. We've switched from sort of a brand-oriented approach to a more general approach, focusing on what the healthcare professionals, pharmacists like myself, and even doctors and nurses actually need. We've recognized this gap in the industry. We're trying to address it. Locally, we have a very robust pre-grad program, but when it comes to post-grad and continued professional development, we see a lot of gaps. So In the past months, we've been trying to mix the traditional way of learning with the new digital transformation. So I look forward to the discussion for the next 15 minutes.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So I think this is going to be an exciting conversation about the challenges educators, medical schools, institutions are facing to meeting the rising demand to train and educate more clinicians, and hopefully talk a little bit as well after that around digital literacy and how we're preparing the future clinicians to an ever-changing world disrupted with technology and preparing them to be able to be contributors in that world. And towards the end, hopefully, we'll talk a little bit about the changes in the role of the physician as AI does a lot more of the heavy lifting. As we know, a lot of people love talking about AI nowadays. So let's start off first with the rising demand for medical education. So we know governments mandate an increased number of medical school places. A lot of us here from the UK are aware of the recent workforce plan, where the government has committed to train many more medical students, open many more medical schools, and we see that across health economies. So what challenge does that pose, and how can technology and innovative learning methods be leveraged to address these challenges? Starting with you, Conrad.
Yes, so having recently graduated from medical school, I was firsthand witness to the difficulty we're facing in providing adequate teaching to our medical students. I can only speak for the German medical system, but for us, most of the teaching is done by practicing clinicians in the university hospitals. And as the demand and the strain on our medical system continues to increase, of course, there's less and less time left over from clinicians to take adequate care of medical students. That is something that I see continuing to increase in the dimensionality over the next coming years as we continue to age as a population, have more and more demand for medical care. Of course, that can also lead to sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy or sort of a downward spiral where we don't adequately teach and prepare clinicians and thereby don't have the resources going forward even further to continue our training and our education. Something, though, that gives me hope is the ability to leverage technology in the educational system. I think that we have a lot of potential, and that's something that we definitely have to look at exploring further if we want to continue to meet the demand.
Thank you. So, Hugh, from the work you're doing in Cardiff, what have you seen, or what are the initiatives that you're trying to take using technology, using innovative ways to address that bottleneck of training requirements?
I think probably the problem here is twofold. It's not just about placements, which you're right, that's a huge problem. The number of students coming through our medical schools and the increasing numbers that we're requested to do is we've also got problems with the states. So, for instance, at my institution, there's only one lecture theatre that will be able to take increased capacity beyond what we've got. And because of that, we might be then going back to what we were doing during the pandemic, which was doing more stuff via synchronized video conferencing. But that had a huge toll on the medical students, both in terms of their learning and also mental health. And so we're trying to stay away from that. It probably means splitting the groups up, which logistically is difficult. And the second side to this is the problem on clinical placement. It's not just about increased student numbers. It's about the busyness of our clinicians to be able to teach. It's about the fact we're having physician assistants also being put into the same areas. And in England, and I think probably in Wales soon as well, we're going to be asked to try to reduce the number of years a medical degree will take. So we're cramming more and more in to an already jam-packed system. Solutions for this, potentially virtual placements. Virtual placements could be asynchronized in terms of virtual reality, but more likely simulated environments which you can walk into, which would probably be a safer way to deliver it, a more robust way to deliver it. But that will require capital investment to set that up, and we're probably going to have to go back to government and say these are placements, and so we need the placement funding to go along with that.
Gia?
So this is a really timely question. Thank you, Anas, for this, because I've just been coming out of this response that we had to prepare as a university to respond to the offers for students in terms of the numbers that we can take from this year and next year. And we are increasingly under the pressure to expand. But if you think about the kind of capacity and the resources there are in the hospitals and in our faculty, we have to remember that the scalability and quality are going to be at tensions with each other at all times. And so if you want to scale and expand the number of students going into the clinical placements, we need to also ensure that the quality of the services and then also the educational aspect is going to be there. And so it's not just the number of students that we send, but it's also about the increase the capacity that we need to have as a faculty, medical educators, to be able to do this right. Now, there's another aspect attached to this around what can we do outside of the physical spaces that will be limited. And so the idea of virtual clinical placement, the virtual reality that we can include to then prepare students outside of this formal curriculum that we have. And so we have a lot of VR simulated experiences that the students can do before going into the clinical placements, and it's only going to increase, and we're just at the start of putting those headsets into different locations of the campuses that we have, but it's technology changing really quickly, and then also the cost associated with creating these kind of bespoke scenarios that the students have come across in VR settings, that is going to put pressure on us as well. So the key message here is the scalability at tension with the quality that we need to ensure that's increasing the pressure for us.
Thank you. And Jan, from your experience with Vivian Pharma, what are you guys doing there?
No, the main point, which I feel just as much as there's a shortage in healthcare professionals, there's also a shortage in medical educators. So to your point, I think it's very important to assess the quality and the number of people who are involved in medical education. From our point of view, we're looking at a more sort of trying to mix the traditional with the traditional model with the digital, where it's a slower start perhaps, but with the point of having enough medical educators available, we're seeing sort of how to have digital content such as videos, content on demand mixed with the traditional, and trying to use these tools to supplement the physical sessions. So with this in mind, hopefully we can overcome as well this increase in demand for medical education.
Thank you very much. So with that background to the kind of limitations we have in terms of the capacity to train and to educate, not just to maintain the quality, not just the quantity, but also maintaining the quality, we're even now facing the reality that we need to introduce more topics to the training, particularly finding the space to introduce digital health literacy training and upskilling of clinicians to prepare them to the reality of clinical care when they actually graduate from med schools and enter to clinical life. And very little is done really at the moment in that sense. So how do you see, from your perspectives, medical educators and institutions can start introducing some of that digital literacy earlier on to empower clinicians to be either part of the conversations, to contribute to developing digital solutions, or just to be stewards of how to use these digital solutions safely and effectively with their patients? Start with you, Conrad.
Yeah, so looking at the future, I think we're going to see more and more digital solutions being incorporated into healthcare. And while, of course, the classical medical education is vastly or very, very important in providing adequate healthcare services to our patients, I think we also have the responsibility to equip future clinicians with the ability to not only effectively use, but also help shape the technology we use in our digital or in our day-to-day practice. So a lot of the work we do at this point is already digital. Think about how much time clinicians spend on computers, spend with medical devices. Those are all things that are going to continue to evolve. And if we as clinicians are not part of the evolving nature of those, they're not going to evolve in a fashion that we might see as best fit to help serve our patients. So while, of course, it's already a very cram-packed study, I think there is a certain responsibility in providing adequate digital literacy in the healthcare providers of tomorrow to help shape that landscape.
You?
I think with this we probably need to go back to basics. The problems that we have are quite fundamental. Just as an example, if you were to look at radiology teaching at undergrad level, What we're doing at the moment is akin to slapping up an old film onto a light box. We are projecting a X-ray or a CT, and that's how we're teaching our undergrads. A medical schools council survey just a couple of years ago before the pandemic asked whether or not we're using DICOM images in undergraduate teaching centrally, and only 50% of UK medical schools are doing that. So we're teaching them wrong from the beginning. We're teaching them bad practice from the beginning. And this technology is not some of the fantastic technology we've seen here today. This is 20-year-old technology, and we haven't got that to our undergraduate medical students yet. So we've really got to go right back to basics and introduce it there. It's great leaving it to the placements to teach this, but that means you're introducing variability across the board. And for a school with 300 students across an entire country, that's not fair on those individual students. We need to bring it back centrally and bring that technology, that 20-year-old technology, back to the med school.
Chair?
So I think it's worth thinking about what we mean by digital literacy. And European Commission and UN did a lot of work around these competencies and frameworks of what digital literacy might mean. And it was 2006 that they identified that digital competency was one of the 8 key competencies that any one citizen would need. This is as far as back as 2006. Now we're post-pandemic, post-digital world. Everything is permeated through digital. And so for us to not have an explicit curriculum around digital literacy into the early years of medicine, it's a little bit questionable, I think. And the way it happens is usually students going into the clinical placements, students exposed to the use of technology in practice, they learn how to use tech. But if you carefully look at the literature of digital literacy, it's much more than just using ICT for work and life. It's actually about critically evaluating digital and ethically using for the social good. And so it's much broader than just being able to use tech for what they need to be able to do. That is the kind of curriculum that we need. And so in thinking about artificial intelligence, doing the kind of automation work, how is it appropriately and ethically used? Are we having these kind of conversations with students in medical curriculum? That is what's missing. And we also then need to recognize, why isn't this change happening? And medical curriculum, of course, is a long-standing one of do one, see one, teach one. And it's jam-packed with subject area of knowledge. And it's very difficult to change that paradigm and then create a space for what people might call soft skills. And they're not soft skills, they're actually human-centered essential skills that are around digital literacy and teamwork skills and communication, critical thinking skills. And so we need to be explicitly embedding into the curriculum, and we can only do so when we have collective voice to change our curriculum early on.
I couldn't agree more with the three of them, but I mean, again, from experience, even in 2023, the curriculum at pre-grad that is too heavy on the traditional, not enough modules about digital and medical health. And I think the only way we can acquire digital literacy is if we acquire it sort of early on. So it has to be sort of ingrained in the upcoming and the healthcare professionals of tomorrow to learn, as you said, how to even evaluate, not just use the tools and technology. And it is only then that we can really start seeing how the power of all the digital and medical technology into education.
Thank you very much. I mean, I couldn't agree more with the comments you've made on this, and particularly on the part around being able to critically assess the digitals that are out there and how they can be used safely with patients. I mean, I've been on the record in the past saying that every medical student should have a computer science 101 course during med school. It doesn't mean everyone has to be a software engineer when they graduate, but if you don't understand data science, if you don't know how data is being used, if you don't know how software is being built, how can you then be critical to it or be a partner to the techies and the innovators who are trying to work with you to build it? So might be an extreme view, but I completely agree that it's not only about knowing how to use these tools, but to critically assess them. In the last couple of minutes we have, if each one of you guys can share in 30 seconds a quick thought on if you think that AI, the way it's changing clinical practice, is changing the definition and the role of the physician. What does it mean from an education perspective, how we should educate patients, and any other final remarks you'd like, takeaway message from everyone? Starting with you.
Sure. So, of course, AI is enjoying quite the hype lately. But I think that there's some foundation to it that we should not ignore. The possibilities to assess and interpret multidimensional data that AI provides us is incredible when it comes to practicing medicine. While I agree that we should definitely introduce digital literacy in our students, I think that we have to create a sensibility for how can we collect data, how can we use data, and how can we use that to make our patient care better. And I think that there's a lot that can be taken out from clinicians if we have an adequate understanding of how can we use data, how can we leverage data to improve our healthcare, and equipping clinicians with a knowledge on how to sort of understand that and how to make use of that. I think everything other than that would be a disservice to our patients in the long run.
Great. Hugh, final thoughts?
Well, I think AI is already in use by our undergraduate medical students. We did a very small study which got published in Medical Education a couple of months ago, which just looked at producing reflections via AI versus real reflections from students, gave it to our lecturers to mark, and no one could tell the difference between either of them. So, and we think we're pretty savvy that we caught on to that. I can guarantee you our students already knew that. And I would imagine the use of AI by our medical students is already endemic within our med school and probably everywhere else. So in some ways, I'm sure we're going to be led by them rather than us, but we certainly need to tighten up some of our guidelines at the medical school and about the governance of how you should be using it.
Really good points made. And I think the biggest question that we have to ask ourselves is, what does it mean to be a human doctor in this age of AI? And so there's a lots of things that AI can do. And we also talked about AI is passing medical licensing exams at about 60% accuracy. We know chat is improving rapidly. So then what can humans do in the work of medicine? That is the question. And if you think about digital health, for example, the telehealth, we don't want just human on the other side of the telephone saying, this is the diagnosis, this is the medicine that you need to take. You want your doctor to be compassionate. You want your doctor to be embracing the vulnerability that you're showing. And this is the kind of skill sets that we're not talking about. If that's only about prevention, detection, diagnosis, AI can do that. So the question is, what does it mean to be a human doctor?
Thank you very much. Last but not least, Jan.
Yep. I think around 25 years ago, we looked at the internet as with skepticism. I think AI is something we need to embrace, and we need to understand that it is an aid and not a replacement, especially when it comes to healthcare. And fine, as a take-home, I think it is society is changing, technology is changing. I think we need to learn to prioritize and choose the trends that are sort of the most impactful for us and for our healthcare professionals.
Thank you very much, and really appreciate all of your contributions. We'll wrap it here. If you can please join me giving our panelists a round of applause for joining us today. Thank you very much.